Hello, everyone. My name's Teresa Harmscoder from Neighbors Church, and this is talk number 3 in our wellness series, and I'm so glad that you could join us. We'll also be posting this talk on YouTube after we edit it and figure out how to do that. So we will get that done. About 10 years ago, I moved into an office building, and the person in the office across from me was Pete Allman, who is our speaker. And you know how sometimes God puts light in your path? I would say Pete is some of that light. It has been such a blessing to get to know him. And also, he has extraordinary balance and can carry 2 cups of coffee and a great big briefcase without dropping or spilling anything, and open doors and unlock them. So very, very coordinated, Pete is.
Thank you.
But beyond that, Pete has a lifetime of experience helping people. I see he has his Lighthouse sweatshirt on. So he is one of the founders of Lighthouse, which is a beautiful nonprofit in Lincoln that he helped to start and is still engaged in. Are you president of the Lighthouse?
Yep. President of the board, director of development, and this is our 35th year.
My gosh. And you have a private practice still. So
private counseling practice, yes.
yeah. So he is not bored at all, but he brings a lifetime of experience helping people explore big questions: how to let go of what no longer serves us, how to live with both joy and pain, and how to find inner freedom in a complicated world. His talks are rooted in the belief that transformation begins not with perfection, but with honesty, humility, and curiosity. He's also the author of several books. So I don't know if any of you have had a chance to read Pete's books, but they are wonderful. First one, Little Me Can Live a Big Life, Integrating Paradoxes for Change. The next one is The Road to Freedom, Letting Go of Your Baggage. Then Shrink Proof Your Life, top 10 ways to stay off the therapist's couch. Pete, that's not very good for your business, though.
Paradoxically, it's increased it.
Oh, there you go. And then the fourth one is, now I forgot, The Power of Thoughts.
Thoughts, the power of your mind.
Thoughts, the Power of Your Mind. And then a book that will be coming out soon to a bookstore near you. So very exciting. So
Thank you.
Pete, I will turn it over to you and look forward. Oh, and I was going to say, if you have any questions during Pete's talk, if you could put them in the chat, I'll help facilitate making sure the questions get asked. So there's a chat button at the bottom of your screen. You can type in any questions you have as we move along. So I'll hand it off to you, Pete.
Great. Thank you, Teresa. And what I told Teresa earlier, I am very informal. So I'd love your questions. I'd love to create discussion along with obviously what I'm going to present. So I'm looking forward to a lot of back and forth with the subject matter. I really like the subject matter because both subjects are kind of two ends of the continuum. Like, how do you find peace in very difficult times? And so my first book is on paradoxes. And a paradox is a statement that is seemingly contradictory or opposed to common thought, or common sense, but yet is perhaps true. And so paradoxical thinking is both and thinking compared to either or. So, we are both strong and weak, and there's up and down, and we're both saints and sinners. So we get in trouble when we split them apart and do either or. And kind of one of my pet peeves is like on election night where they want to know, is it a blue state or a red state? Well, it's both and. Every state is a variety of purple. But we like to know, are you this or are you that? And we humans are much more complex than just either or in black and white thinking. So the spiritual way is to think paradoxically where we can hold both at the same time. So, how do you find joy when there's pain in life? Do you see that both and? And how do you find freedom when, life can be pretty constricting? Um, so I thought I'd start with truly my favorite paradox. And remember, it's both and. And the paradox is we both have a human nature and a spiritual nature. And we've got to hold those two simultaneously. Because what happens if we just split it, then we do our human life and Pete can get so far, but Pete falls short. And then maybe our spiritual life is on Sunday. And you kind of hear the folly in that. So we have to think both and of our human nature and our spiritual nature. And really, I believe Jesus modeled that to us. And it's called that divine union. Um, so what kind of stops that? What hinders that from happening? And I believe it's our ego. And in psychology, there's many definitions of ego, but for this talk, ego is going to be that way of thinking, that mindset that creates kind of separateness and only thinking about self. And it's all about I, like I want this, or I don't want that, or I'm better than Joe, or I'm not as good as Joe. So that ego mind thoughts create separateness and craving and really a false sense of self. And so an easy way to remember of how dysfunctional the ego is the three letters could stand for ego, edging God out. So in the book, The Road to Freedom, and it's letting go of your baggage, I start off with kind of seven premises, but one of them is that your thoughts create your reality. And that's really all about what the thoughts book is about too. And you heard me mention that the ego is just a mindset. It's just a way of thinking, and our thoughts create our reality. So we can think from kind of our ego mind, or we can think from our spiritual nature, our divine mind. Um, and whatever mode you're in, that's gonna be your reality. So if you're in your ego mind, you're gonna find yourself feeling like separated and kind of living in scarcity and fear, resentment, and kind of like, man, I'm swimming upstream. That's the message that you're in your ego mind and that you now need to switch to your spiritual mind. And that sounds simple, but there's also the paradox simple is not easy. Um, and then we'll talk more about the spiritual mind in a bit, but I want to share. I thought this was a parable, but then someone told me later it's a true story. But it's a really good metaphor of us. And here it is. And this is long ago, somewhere in the East, where the people in this village built a statue, a huge statue of Buddha made entirely of gold, and it brought great benefit to the children of the village and everybody in the village. That their true natures is love and forgiveness and sharing and compassion, and it just reminded everybody that their true nature is golden. And then they heard a neighboring village was going to come into town and pillage everything, and they knew they had to hide the golden Buddha statue, but the statue is way too big to hide in any conventional manner. So they finally decided to cover it up with concrete and dirt. And then when the army came in, they saw this dirty old concrete statue and they didn't pillage it. And they stayed for a long time. And when they finally left, the people of the village forgot the true nature of that statue until one day a man was meditating underneath it, stood up and broke off a piece of the concrete, and then saw the true nature of the statue. And I believe our true nature is golden. And we all, because of um, family of origin stuff, because of cultural stuff, because of many things, we've covered our divinity with concrete and dirt. And our job is to figure out, you know what? I don't need to believe that, whatever that is anymore. And that's letting go of the ego thoughts. And then we're going to live more from our true nature, our spiritual self. So, some of the examples of the dirty old concrete is when we live in the past or when we live in the future. And in the past, that creates anxiety, or excuse me, in the past, that creates depression. And if we live in the future, that creates anxiety because our mind just, you know, goes tons of places. Um, God said, I am. That's present. He didn't say it was or will be. So the present is our only time frame in which to be with God, be with our golden true nature, and then it's God and us in our endeavors. So if you're in the past or the future, that's dirty old concrete. Um, Also, if we're solely concerned with our identity, our successes, our accumulations, kind of all the stuff that capitalism is built on, that's going to be dirty old concrete that covers up our true nature because it's not all about Pete. It's not all about what Pete can buy, what Pete can present, what Pete can do, all that. I mean, you hear how we can just get swallowed in that. And we got to get past that just about Pete. And of course, when we are in our spiritual nature, yeah, it's important to love self, but it's also important to love our neighbor. And then the paradox, what you give, you receive. So that's a second area where we can get lost and lose our freedom. Um, Another one is, and I'll just start with an example. If you meet someone or if you see someone and they'll say, hey, Pete, how you doing? You just listen. Most people say, oh, I'm busy. And the other person says, oh, I'm busy too. And then that gets rewarded of being busy, 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 which is really part of our culture. And that busyness then leads into the material world and our attachments to it and judgments. And that is not living with our gold, our divinity. And that creates the baggage that keeps us stuck. So those are just three examples of the dirty old concrete that covers up our true nature. Another one is if we live in scarcity versus abundance. And, God's love is abundant. I believe the universe is abundant. And we've all been taught to varying degrees something about scarcity. And that is not the road to freedom. And it's just a mindset again of switching our mind to something that is more connected to God. Perfect. So the good news is you do not need to search outside yourself. You don't need to accomplish anything in which to get in touch with your spiritual nature, your kind of divine self. All we need to do is let go of the external concrete and dirt, depower the ego mind, and simply not buy into those thoughts and create new thoughts that come from the divine. And, we know that those are love and peace and abundance and generosity. And, the gifts of the spirit includes forbearance and a lot of those things. So it's a practice the rest of our life. And we incrementally get better at at owning our human nature because we do need to live in the world, but also owning our spiritual nature so we don't become of the world. And that's somewhere, I think, in John. I have it, John 17:11-19 talks about to live in the world, but not be of the world. I remember reading that saying, whoa, how in the world? And I think what we're talking about is a way of, we need to live in the world and have a sense of self, because Pete Allman does need to go to work and fix a meal and, do all these things. But that's not the sole identity. It goes also along with the divine self. So speaking of identity, um, we use the word I a lot. I want this. I want that. And developmentally, we do need to develop a sense of I. That baby needs to figure out that I can walk, I can talk. Um, the kid in school needs to figure out I can learn to read and write and do arithmetic. Adolescent needs to learn a sense of I, of who am I and what are my strengths and talents that I can live in the world. Um, but after a while, we think that's the only game in town, that I need to do this. And that I is always changing. Like an hour ago, I was a cook for dinner or for lunch. I am a presenter. I am, lots of things. It's ever changing, and it's not this permanent identity. It's not our supreme sense of self, which the ego wants us to believe. And then we get into judgment too, of like, oh, I am a good writer. I'm a lousy writer. I am good at this. I'm bad at that. And that just gets us so stuck. So again, we need to create this union, and we need to have love at the core. And so it's God and I, Spirit and I, Jesus and I. And then we can be that kind person, that giving person, that non-judgmental, but also figure out, oh, I missed the mark and I need to do better. And that is lightness compared to heaviness. And that lightness allows us to live in the world in a more loving manner. Um, so I remember reading and learning, judge not, and yet ye be judged. And I thought, well, how do you live in the world if you're not judging and make decisions? And then I learned the word discernment. And we're supposed to discern every second of the day. And discernment means yes or no. Judgment means right, wrong, good, bad. And I'm going to tell you another parable where we really don't know. Um, but before that, so you're driving down the street and the light turns yellow. And I move into judgment. That is wrong. That's bad. How dare the city not time the lights? I'm busy, blah, blah, blah. And I lose my peace. Judge not. So discernment, yes or no. Oh, the light turned yellow. Yes, I'm far enough through. I can go. Discernment, I'm far enough back. I need to stop. I did not lose my peace. I still have lightness compared to heaviness. So in judgment, the good, bad, right, wrong, in the really, really big picture, you guys, we don't know. Now, remember, we need to discern every second of the day and say yes and no. So you might have heard this parable, but I'll share it anyway. And this is a long time ago. A farmer had one son and one horse to work his land, the farm. And then the horse ran away. And all the people in the village says, that's terrible, that's bad. And the wise farmer said, bad? He goes, I don't know, we'll see. And a couple of days later, that horse came back with 5 wild mares. The people in the village says, that's great, that's fantastic. And the wise farmer says, good. He goes, I don't know, we'll see. A couple of days later, his son was trying to tame one of those wild horses, got bucked off and broke his leg. And all the people in the village says, that's terrible, that's bad. And the farmer says, bad? He goes, we'll see. And the very next day, the army came through that small town, taking all the young men off to war, and they left his son behind. So this is an example of we don't know what's good or bad. Now, discern, the horse runs away, fix the fence. But it's a practice to quit kind of playing God and saying good, bad, right, wrong, and just move to discernment. And discernment is one of the gifts of spirit. Discern what is yours to do here with God. So that's a big practice that has helped me on the road to freedom of staying connected with peace and serenity and the divine. So, Teresa, any questions so far that, because I'm throwing out a lot, it seems like.
No questions so far. Does anyone want to ask a question?
Okay. And please, if I'm throwing out too much, please say, hey, let's go back to something, because I'm happy to. Um, so you probably have heard this language too, but we are so used to just living in our human nature and not incorporating the spiritual nature along with that, that we get stuck into thinking that we are human doings because we just do so much, but we're really human beings. And part of our identity is doing so much, and the ego mind thinking we got to be busy and stressed because everybody else is busy and stressed. So I got to be too. And, if you meet somebody, one of the first questions you ask is, what do you do? That's human doing. We create things to do lists, which is good. But if it only becomes our only identity, it isn't. We ask our children what they did today. So we stress the do at the expense of the be. And that's going to be baggage. You're going to lose your freedom of living in the world. So here's the progression of really how we humans are made. Everything starts from our being, and everybody's being is different, whether it's personality, traits and abilities, preferences, and also people's beings are similar, meaning the divine rests within everybody. But from our being of who we are and the gifts that God gave us come our doing. And the doing is more effortless because it comes from our being of who we are. And then from our doing creates our having, because you need to have a car and have a roof and have food. But in our culture, guess what's happened? We completely flip flop this. The progression is, what do you have? Where do you live? What kind of car do you drive? What possessions, your trips? And to have all that, you need to do a ton. And then if we have all that and we're really doing a lot, then we'll finally be somebody. And you hear the folly in that. But that's what in this three-dimensional Western world, that's what's been taught to us and modeled to us. And we think it's the only game in town. And it isn't. We can flip-flop this and move more to our being. So if we're being patient with our children, we will do better parenting and then have better, well-adjusted children. If we're being kind to our spouse, we'll do behaviors that are important to him or her and have a better marriage. Be good to coworkers, do helpful behaviors, then have a happier workplace. These are examples of operating from our gold, our soul, our divine self, of uniting our human nature and our spiritual nature. One of the practices that is more stressed, not stressed in a bad way, but presented and embodied in the East more than the West, but it's coming more to the West, is being aware of our thoughts and meditating. Because, well, here's a kicker. We are not our thoughts. They're just thoughts. And some thoughts lead to healthy behaviors and some thoughts lead to unhealthy behaviors. They're still just thoughts, and we can always change our thoughts. But if we don't create that distance and meditate and see our thoughts, then we don't understand, why am I unhappy, or why did I get stuck here? Why is this happening again to me? It's because you're not aware of your thoughts, and then it's like paint on a wall that you say, oh, that wall is beige. Well, no, the wall's not beige, the paint is beige. But it's so close that we can't see the difference. So a practice that I'm going to highly recommend, and there's tons of tons of YouTubes on this and books, is just start meditating. The practice of the purpose to see your thoughts and let your thoughts go and realize, oh, you're not your thoughts. They can just run down the river. Do that 5 minutes a day, and then do it 10 minutes a day. I think you're going to be surprised how quickly those 5 minutes goes and 10 minutes goes, something like that. And then you're going to have the space in which to see your thoughts and make better decisions. Teresa.
Is there a particular, well, you're getting some good compliments in the chat, but is there a particular kind of meditation that's called that? So that wouldn't be necessarily guided meditation, because is it like centering prayer, or what kind of a meditation?
Yeah. In fact, thank you, because neither one of those, because like guiding and sensory stuff, you're using your thoughts.
Right.
This is to, number one, we need first a strategy in which to quiet our mind. And so the best one I have found is just being aware of your breath, of coolness in through the nose, and then it's just a hair warmer going back out. And so then the mind will be here compared to all over the place. And initially, you're probably going to have to say a little mantra along with it. You could figure out whatever you want to do, like God is love, God is love. And then once you realize, oh, I'm really just centered on that mantra and that breathing, you can let go of the mantra and just be aware you're breathing. And you will then see thoughts. You're like, oh, okay. Pete said I was going to see it, but I'm just going to let that thought go. Don't get attached to it. And then another thought will arise. And then you're just watching it, which is the word is freedom. And then after a while, the mind starts to slow down. But it takes a while. But the main purpose is just to see your thoughts and to realize it's just a thought. Another metaphor. A rainbow appears. We think the rainbow's real, but you can't touch it. You can't take a chunk from it, which is just like a thought. The conditions created the rainbow, meaning there was light and moisture that created the rainbow. Now, when the conditions change, the moisture's gone or light's gone, the rainbow disappears. Same thing with our thoughts. If the conditions are there, oh, we're going to have tons of thoughts about work or wife or children or whatever, politics. Those are just conditions that created these thoughts. Change the condition. Go to your breathing. They will dissipate. Now, they'll come back, just to let you know it's normal, but they lose their power. And that is freedom. And so then what's happening is we are emptying ourselves. And when we empty ourselves of these ego thoughts, guess what can appear more? The divine, the spirit. And like, oh, okay, I'm one with God. Because guess where the Bible says the kingdom of God resides? Inside. It's not separate. We are one. We lose that, but we can regain it. And you guys, everything I've covered so far is meat and potatoes. And so I'm feeling a little bad that I'm throwing so much out. Maybe one last thing in this area, and this is kind of fun, kind of play on words. We know the Garden of Eden, and we know that Adam and Eve lived one with God. And then, play on words, is then there's the Garden of Ego, where we take over, and then we believe in scarcity, we believe in embarrassing things, and we believe our thoughts. So a Buddhist concept is pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So this is going to go into the other topic of this discussion. As human beings, we will experience physical and emotional pain. We just will. That's part of this three-dimensional world. Now, there's purpose in pain because pain tells us what not to do. And we sure get it like in the physical world, meaning if you touch a hot stove, it's painful. You will never touch a hot stove again. But we don't get it in the mental emotional world because stuff happens. People die. Our children go off to school. You get fired, whatever. Pain's inevitable. But our mind creates the suffering because we hold on to it. And that's the garden of ego. So pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And Buddha taught that the first arrow that someone shoots at you, that's pain. And it is painful. But if there's a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth arrow, we've created it because we're holding on to that shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have done that. How come that happened to me? All those things that keep us attached to that painful experience. But there's more going on. The horse comes back with 5 wild mares. The young man that got bucked off, broke his leg, his life was spared, didn't go off to war. So we need to loosen the ego mind, move to the spiritual mind, which is the golden. I am a Star Wars fan. Maybe you're not, but Luke Skywalker, he was the apprentice to the Jedi Knight Obi-Wan. And Luke is more interested in advanced technology of his culture. And he misperceives of his fighting strengths, because he thinks it's all about himself. But he can't, this is the first Star Wars, he can't blast down that narrow shaft to destroy the Death Star because Lucas is more focused on the feedback from the computers. Obi-Wan says, Luke, trust the Force. Christians, trust God, trust Jesus, trust Spirit. Realizing that Luke won't be successful if he relies on his own devices, Luke takes off his headset, disengages the computer, which is 2 examples of ego, and after a moment of quieting his mind, Luke finds the clarity along with the Force and fires a blast that makes a direct hit. It's a great metaphor of you can live in your ego or you can use your human strengths, drive the ship, know what button to hit, but trust the Force and God and you take over. So a spiritual leader in southern India said, when a magnet does not attract the needle, the fault lies on the dirt covering up the needle. We need to clear away the thinking of the ego mind and allow our being God and you, to attract that eternal magnet, God. Because God always wants to be with us. Well, God is with us, but he's not a puppeteer. And we have to call upon that presence and trust the force, trust God. And then Pete and God can do a lot. You and God can do a lot. And it's a lot of good, not busyness, a lot of good. We all know, you all know, there's a lot of darkness in the world today. Has been, but also today. Our job is to be the light because we can't take care of all this United States stuff and the world stuff, but we can take care of ourselves. And the way you depower the dark is turn on a light. As you well know, in a, a bedroom you enter that was dark. And then that light will attract other people that you can turn on, help turn, burn their candle, turn on their candle. And then the more light, by definition, will dissipate the dark. And so my practice has been to let go of judging all the darkness out there, because that really keeps me stuck. And then I get dark myself and I let go of it. I still vote and send letters and do a variety of things. And I'm practicing to be the light. That golden Buddha statue, every one of us, that's our true nature. So, love to stop there and go over anything again, ask questions about a lot of this, because I know it's a lot, but that's okay.
It it is a lot, and it's wonderful, and it's a good. I need to make a big shift. So I need to be a big shift.
There you go. Good language, Teresa. Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts or questions from anyone who is with us right now?
This is Betty. No, I just really appreciate everything you're saying about yeah, the concept of being and that turning around the being, doing things.
Yeah.
So being is the core again. If it ever was for me. But yeah, I really appreciate that concept.
Thank you, Betty. And then you'll be more aware of it and then you'll practice more because we're all in a habit. And I go into do modes. I'm like, oh, okay. My the way I catch it is I'm not being as much in the flow as I usually am. Oh, okay. Back to my being. Okay, God, you and me.
Several years ago, I took a class and it wasn't at all what I thought the class would be. You know, my horse escaped and
Oh, yes.
but I thought, well, I'll just sit in the class. And the class was really about energy. It was about
Oh.
the energy you're emitting and
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of science about the power of prayer and how it really heals and all that. But it was a life-changing class for me in that it made me think about what is the energy that is coming off of me that I am bringing to wherever I am going. And that's
Yes.
also helped me to be being instead of doing too. I'm not thinking about what should I do. It's
Uh-huh.
who shall I be? And I don't know if that's the same or not, but it does help me when I'm conscious, when I'm using it.
Yeah. I think that's right on, Teresa.
It was a great class to accidentally sit in.
Well, and again, thank you for tying in because that ties into the metaphor of that story.
Mhm.
You know, like, oh, I can't believe I made a mistake. This is wrong. It's blah, 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 blah. No, you didn't judge it. You're just open to say, okay, I'll see.
Yeah, no, I did judge it, but I let go of that.
There you go. Yeah.
Any other input questions?
Teresa, what's the language of the first part of this class of how do we, something with all the pain or?
Oh, you mean the series, the
No,
wellness?
you had two kind of concepts for today.
Okay. Well, apparently I was more organized when we were arranging it,
Oh,
but I mean, we want people to have grace for themselves. So I
to
think
do what?
grace for
Oh, great.
ourselves,
Yes.
and you've talked about, you've
Yeah.
certainly covered
Yeah.
that. And knowing that wellness is not the same as perfection.
Yeah. That practice makes perfect is so bad and not bad, so unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Practice makes permanent.
Yes. Okay.
So there's no perfect out there, especially in the human realm. Now, God's love's perfect and all that stuff, but we humans got to let go of perfect. And people that come to my office that perfectionism is a presenting issue, it takes a while to get that unstuck.
Mhm.
So just keep practicing.
A good friend of mine, a faculty member, told me once that the way she discovered how to just be is to consistently be mediocre,
Oh,
to not strive for
uh-huh.
perfection. Mediocre is not the right word, but the concept of
Yeah,
I to
yeah.
consistently be good. I don't have to be perfect.
I love that. Love that.
We do have a couple comments in the chat. First is there a way to help coworkers switch their mindset easily?
The only person you can change is yourself. You can, well, like, this book, Thoughts, the Power of Your Mind. Um, get that, read it, have it on your desk, and then they can say, "Well, tell me about that." And that way, they're asking, because if a person asks, then it's fair to give an answer. But it's really not fair game to say, "Let me tell you what I have found," because they're going to be like, "Oh, whatever." Um, So also, if we're living more with peace and grace and acceptance, they might say, "You're different. What's going on?" They've asked a question. Then you can share.
And also we can let go of judging even what we think they think
Well,
too.
there you go. Yep. I love that.
And Laura posted kindly in the chat the introduction to your talk. So kind of the frame
Oh,
of reference,
uh-huh. Yeah.
how to let go of what no longer serves us, how to live with both joy and pain, and how to find inner freedom in
Yeah.
a complicated world.
Yeah. I talked about finding a lot of freedom, but finding joy and pain in the world, that's a great paradox. Um, Thank you for that. Because one of the things I want to mention is um, in First Thessalonians, it says, "Give thanks in all circumstances." Now, it doesn't say give thanks for all circumstances. So that give thanks, that's the gratitude. And gratitude changes, that gratitude attitude changes us. So remember, pain is inevitable. And I feel for people that are experiencing emotional pain. And then it's like, okay, um, what is mine to do now? How can I, and truly, most pain, emotional pain comes from grief. And so it's working through the 5 stages of grief. And whether it's with a professional, a friend, journaling, but you don't have to reside there in the immense pain. Obviously, the death of a loved one, that will be with you for life. But it just, not just, it rearranges your life that you can get back to your being of love and peace and acceptance with the new normal. So I believe grief is at the core of almost all emotional pain. And happiness is based on a circumstance, and joy is just always there. So I'm happy when after I have a good meal, but that changes. And then I'm like, well, what do I need now? What do I need? Well, no, move away from that is find joy. And that's really what I have found. The only recipe for that is combining your human and spiritual natures. And that's the way we're made, I believe.
And Pete, are you a Buddhist?
I would call myself a Zen Christian.
A Zen Christian, okay.
Mm-hmm. But okay, I'm glad you said that. Even the I am a Christian, I am a Zen Christian will cause problems, because then our mind will say, oh, well, that's better than another religion, or I am better than, or I am more. No, I practice the Christian faith. I practice Zen Buddhism. That practice comes from my being.
Mhm.
So even the I statement of I'm a Christian or I'm a Buddhist, whatever, is problematic, because it's identity, and then it's Pete knows the right answer.
Well, and also those boxes are so narrow. God is so
Exactly.
much bigger than any box we can put ourselves in.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, because we have a little bit of time left, here's my belief. I believe there is a God, a divine spirit. And there's many pointers to try to get to God: Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Native American. I think AA is a good pointer. Most people say, this is it, the pointer. No, it's just a pointer. This is it. And my practice now, any of these pointers that get me to reside here more, I'm all about.
Exactly.
I'm all about, because that's Pete and God are one. And then I forget that. And then something painful will happen, like, oh, thanks for that reminder.
That's the human part of your being.
That's exactly right. Because, we've all had practice of just kind of residing there.
Right. Any other questions for Pete? I mean, this is a great opportunity.
While you were talking, I was actually doing the breathing that you were suggesting.
Oh, good.
And it's amazing to me, I do that occasionally. It's amazing to me how quickly that can bring me to a space of peace, I guess is the word I would use.
Yeah. Do you see the smile on my face? That just makes me so happy. Yeah. And that's the light.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, do we need to be the light in today's world.
Yes, we need to be the light.
Yeah. And that's the only way to dissipate the darkness.
And we could probably do a whole other series on social media and big data and algorithms and the anxious
Oh,
generation and all that. But
oh,
that's something to be conscious about too in our
mhm.
what are we feeding ourselves,
Mhm.
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
what are we letting ourselves be fed to?
Yeah.
So where you go
Yeah.
creates what you get fed.
So the books that I shared, they are on Amazon,
Okay.
and yeah, they just all take kind of a different subject, things I've been interested in. And yeah, and then in December, a book's going to come out. It's called Love, 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 a roadmap to unconditional kindness.
Mm.
And so it's on agape love, which is the unconditional love from God. Because I've always been interested and stuck on what Jesus said is the second most important commandment: love your neighbors as yourself. Like that's a big ask. And I never knew how to do it. I mean, not that I know how to do it now, but because love is so complex and it's so multifaceted. There's kindness and compassion and patience and wisdom and reciprocity. And there's so much that I'm like, that's too much. I'm just going to keep that for my immediate family. Well, I found if I just define love as unconditional kindness, guess what? All those other things, compassion and sharing and benevolence, that just comes along. I'm like, oh, just being unconditionally kind. So that's what the whole book's on, of how to love, 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 with the roadmap being be unconditionally kind, because that's being loving.
Mhm.
Pete, you're talking to Neighbors Church, which is love God, love yourself, love your neighbor. That's our
Well,
mission. So that's a perfect. Betty, were you going to say something?
I think that all ties too, and with what you were talking about, Teresa, the energy. If we are kind, the unconditional kindness is drawing that energy from us to others, that positive energy.
yeah, I agree.
Will you be doing book signings or events around your book release that we can watch for?
Uh, yes, I'm not as energized like I used to be. Like I used to do tons. I am going to give the sermon at the 11:59 service at First Plymouth on December 7th,
Okay.
and I'm putting quote marks on the sermon. I'll give a talk about love, love, love.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your taking time with us today. Always,
Thank
always
you. Thank
great to
you.
hear your message, and your books are fantastic. Looking forward to the new one, and a big round of applause. Thank you very
Oh,
much, Pete, for joining us.
thanks for inviting me. These subjects energize me. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank you, everyone.